groundwork that transfers directly to our riding and working from the riding area with our horses on the ground and using principles instead of rules to conduct ourselves with our horses. So if we are on the ground next to our horses and we work with them from behind the shoulder and potentially in front of the hip, like in the area that we would ride in, but from the ground, or anywhere just behind the shoulder, we're creating kind of a two-way street of communication where we're thinking forward to our horses and our horses are thinking backward toward us. In this way, our horses are learning to think back to us, listen to us from behind, but also a nice little added benefit of that behavior is that they're kind of lifting their front end up a little bit. They're not just so heavy on their forehand because we're standing out in front of them. So whether I'm standing right next to my horse with my arm on my horse's back, or I can reach out and scratch my horse, or if I'm 20 feet away and I'm online and I'm working like maybe on the lunge, I'm never going to attach mechanical devices to my horse. I'm not going to attach something. I'm not going to have a bit probably, but I'm not going to attach a bit to a surcingle or run any sort of a lunge line through a bit over a head. I'm not going to attach any kind of long lines to a surcingle. There's no need, and that's because of principles. So if I'm going to give my horse responsibilities and I'm going to allow my horse to take on those responsibilities, my only job is to really talk with them about exactly what I want and shape their bodies and ask them to continue to move back into that shape. So here's an example. And this is just a simple example, and you can apply it as broad and wide and deep as you like in your horsemanship. So if I wanted a horse to stand in a barn aisle while I brush them, I would just take them in the barn aisle, and I probably would have a halter and lead rope on. I would drop the lead rope on the ground and expect them to stand right there, not be rooting in the brush box or going over to the feed area to find out what there is, not leaving. Just standing right there in the aisleway. If my horse did anything but stand there in the aisleway while I do the work I need to do, and I'm not suggesting they can't lift a foot or shift their weight or move within reason, but if they did anything other than just stand where I put them, I would simply put them back, because that would be something that's important to me. Let's take that to riding. If I'm out on the trail and let's say we're on our way home and the horses all get a homeward pace about them, they kind of have a little excitement and they want to go a little bit faster, I would not pick up my reins and hold my horse back. I would put my reins down. I would expect my horse to maintain the gait that we've agreed on, whether it's a walk or a trot or a canter, whatever it is. And then if my horse did anything but that, then I would talk to my horse, because that's important to me. You see how it's just like it is in the barn aisle? And that's whether I'm showering my horse or I'm riding my horse or doing my groundwork from the riding area, or I'm just standing in the barn aisle. It also, this big principle that we live under is the same principle that I use if I'm walking from the barn to some lush grazing area and I have to walk across grass. I don't expect my horse to be diving for the grass all the time. I expect them to be keeping pace with me, maintaining the direction and maintaining the speed. So if we're going to walk from the barn to the lush grazing space, I expect them to stay, shoulder to shoulder. I expect them to stay with me where they know that I want them to be. I would not address them unless they didn't do that. So if for some reason the horse stops and they're not keeping up with me, then I would stop and I would talk to my horse about keeping up with me. I wouldn't talk to them about eating grass. Now, if there was a concern they were having, if they were on higher alert and they were saying, oh, I can't go there, there's a scary thing over there, that's a different story. But this principle of simply giving them responsibilities and allowing them to take them, expecting them to take them, is something that permeates every bit of my horsemanship. And it starts on the first day I meet any horse. And it doesn't matter their age, it doesn't matter their sex, it doesn't matter where they are in the world. I fully expect horses to maintain their own responsibilities. And that's because I live under a principle. Like, I don't have a rule that says when you're on my lead rope, you can't eat grass. That's not a rule that I have. I have this principle that says, hey, keep up. We're going somewhere together. If I were the lead mare, I wouldn't need to stop and tell the horse, hey, we're going to lush grazing. I'd be going to lush grazing, and that horse would say, me too. And that's what I want. I want the horses to want to say, me too. Okay, so inside of that thinking, that principle, and there's lots of principles, but inside of that principle, that umbrella, I keep going like this because I feel like it's kind of an umbrella of principles that we kind of live under. Inside of that, if I'm going to work with my horse on the ground and expect my groundwork to transfer to my riding, then I need to be on the ground what I want to be when I ride. And then I need to be, when I ride, what I was when I was on the ground. So I'm going to look where I want to go. I'm not going to be looking at my horse. If I were riding, I would be looking where we're going. I wouldn't be looking at my horse. So I want to start that idea right there on the ground. And I got that from the horses. If you'll know, like if you see them out and they're running and playing or even grazing, and especially boy horses, girls maybe not quite as much as boy horses, but boy horses are so playful. If you see them and they're going somewhere together and they're just going and going and going, they're both looking where they're going. They're not interacting. I mean, they're not interacting with one another. But it's when one horse looks at the other says, yes, what is it? And then they're, up in the air and twirling around, or they begin running or whatever it is. It's a signal almost when I turn my attention, not keep them in my peripheral vision. That's not what I'm talking about, and keep my attention on them that way. But when I turn my focus and my attention to look at my horse, I expect them to respond. I want them to say, yes, what is it that you need? What is it that you'd like? What is it that you want? What is it that we're going to do next? I want it to be that soft. I don't want to have to be big with my horse. So in that way, we're going to go shoulder to shoulder. And I say shoulder to shoulder, but I really want my shoulder to be a bit behind their shoulder and more in the riding area. And I want us to go together. And when they're doing the thing that I want, whether it be a walk or a trot or a canter or whatever it is that I want them to do, I want to just allow them to do it. And if they're not doing it, I'm going to turn my attention to them and I'm going to ask them to do it. Now, in a case where I might be doing groundwork where I'm walking backwards and I'm drawing my horse toward me because maybe I want to create a really nice haunches in, or I'm trying to work on a little bit of groundwork where I maybe want a half pass, and I haven't yet gotten to that place where I can ask them from 2 lines on the ground, or if I want to refine something, that's a different story. We're now working in an intimate, close contact conversation, as opposed to a big, everybody take their self-responsibility conversation. But that big, everybody take their self-responsibility conversation turns into this really refined, connected communication that's almost indistinguishable to a casual observer who's walking past. They may not even see what we're doing. They may not even know, because it starts as an internal picture, and I add a positive emotion that I share with my horse. I be the change I want to see in my horse. I want to actually do the thing I want them to do, and then I support their idea as they're going along and being the change that I want to see in them as well. And the whole time, I'm thinking to them, they're thinking to me. I'm thinking forward to them, they're thinking back to me. Now, when I get on my horse, after I've communicated in this way from the ground, I can't necessarily squeeze to use my legs to go, because I couldn't do that on the ground. I used my other cues. I used my clear mental picture. I used my positive emotion. I used my energetic body language to say, come on, let's go, or come back here and let's stop. So I want to use all those things when I'm riding and save my legs for more fine communication, a refined way of communication. I don't want to necessarily have my legs always mean go. I want them to be soft, and when I actually touch a horse with a leg with some sort of intention, or I stiffen a leg, because I want something to happen, I want my horse to say, yes, what is that leg saying? Oh, is this what you'd like? Because I don't want to dull them. So having groundwork that transfers to riding also has to manifest in the riding. So it's a huge umbrella that we live under, these principles, but it all comes back to me having personal responsibility for me, and conveying in such a way that my horse can understand whatever horse I've got, not necessarily always mine. I say mine because I feel like they're all mine. But me conveying my information to the horse in a way the horse can understand, and then the horse demonstrating that they understand, and then me listening to the horse. So when they tell me that they can't, or there's something that's in the way of them being able to say, yes, I would love to, I'm going to be responsive. I'm not going to expect my horse to do something they can't do, but I'm also not going to make